today's fun project is going to be a jumbo postcard for Valentine's, and we're going to be using some HTS vinyl along with some inkjet printable vinyl from HTS and a little canvas from the Dollar Tree. If you haven't used HTS's dark transfer paper, you don't know what you're missing. This allows you to use your regular inkjet printer to make fun designs. So the best thing with the dark transfer paper is you can print any design on it that you decide. And here I'm playing with some different heart patterns to see what I want to put on this giant postcard. So today's project, we're going to be using an 8x10 canvas from the Dollar Tree, and we're going to be using the Ink Dark Transfer Paper from HTS. It's easy to use. You don't mirror the design. You print it from your inkjet printer, and I use the highest quality photo setting possible. And once you get that, we will work on the rest of the directions, like removing the backing and placing the film on top of, in this case, the canvas. So we just load this paper into our regular printer. So I've adjusted some settings to make sure that I get the best layout for this. I've also adjusted media quality. I'm allowing the print to be a little bit larger so I can cut out and trim what I need. And no watermarks, and my supply levels I had already checked were fine. So we're going to attempt to print this and see what happens.
For 300 more craft tutorials, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and remember to hit that bell. Thanks, everyone.
And our design is printed out. You can see the brick wall in the back and the areas where I'll need to trim, but we're going to take that and compare it to our canvas to see the best fit. So now, as you can see, the canvas is a little bit larger than the print. I have two choices here. I can utilize the design as is, or I can stretch it. And in this case, I think we're going to not waste the paper, and we're going to create some type of border so that we can embrace the background. I don't know how many of you have a large paper cutter, but they're great. I found this one at a local craft store for $10. I think what we're gonna do is pick from one of the HTV matte colors that is available. And since this color seems to have some pinks and blues in it, maybe even a red, trying to figure out which color is going to stand out. Or maybe we should layer some HTV. So normally I will just try to make a border, but I felt like this time I needed to go ahead and just make it easier and see if we can layer the dark HTV transfer on top of the matte. That way it makes kind of a seamless border and I don't have to kind of cut and paste if I make some jagged ends. So on the Cameo 3, it's a little bit easier when you're looking at making some cuts because everything is pretty much labeled out for you. So on the heat transfer, I'll usually use the smooth. I typically will do 2 passes, but since this is a simple square, I shouldn't have a problem. So first mistake, remember, flip your HTV shiny side down. So again, we're gonna repeat this job only because I had a moment of lapse and decided to cut it like I was doing adhesive. I know we've all been there. I don't know if any of you use the roll trick to help keep your board going, but it does help me. So we're going to cut this back out. It's not going to hurt anything because it barely went through, and it didn't cut through on the vinyl side, just the plastic. So we'll see what happens. So we just need to make sure we take the edge off of this so that we can go ahead and prepare it for our mat or canvas. Make sure this square comes out just right. And the great thing about HTV is it weeds so nicely. I don't know how many of you have the Tweety pen, but it's wonderful. If you can look closely, you can see the vinyl is taking on some of the impressions from the canvas, so it almost looks like it's painted. So there's a little bit of a border, and I did cut this based on the Cameo's 8 by 10, so the mat may be a smidge smaller, but we'll cross that bridge as we get there. And what we'll want to do is press this first, but not for the full time, because we're going to be pressing the inkjet transfer paper a little bit longer. So I've selected my font and my letters. I'm not going to do the full 8 inches here. I do need to bring this in a little bit just to make sure we don't go over on the dimensions that we need. I know there's going to be some space based on the letters, but let's see how this turns out. Cutting the baby blue right now. And we're going to weed out our design one more time. I'm gonna get the box rounded off of here just to make sure I had it right and I didn't overcut my vinyl. And we're gonna go ahead and get the lettering out. And again, this vinyl just reads so nicely. Sometimes I gotta make sure I don't pull up my design because I want to rip this off of here, but it's doing a great job on its own. Oops. So we have that off of there, and we want to make sure we get all the little pieces, or in this case a big centerpiece, off, and we have our love. So now we're going to take our design and try to do a placement that we like on here, and I didn't do it too tall and I didn't do it too wide. I want to make sure that it stays. Just be careful when pressing this, because when you go to press, it may leave indentations. So you could cheat. I haven't done this in a long time. You could peel off your letters and place them on there and just let the use it without your carrier sheet if you want to try to avoid these deep impressions. Not always recommended, but it can be done. So as you can see, we peel off the dark inkjet transfer paper, and we're going to be applying it to the hot coral HTV. I am going to cover up the little boo-boo area, but we'll get the design set in place so that it will adhere, and we can turn this into a nice little postcard gift for someone this Valentine's Day. Now what I'm going to do is use some heat tape and actually adhere the back, or adhere it to the back of the vinyl or the canvas board. I'm going to tape that down, and then I'll do my trimming afterwards. And it could even adhere to the back of it, but we'll cross that bridge depending on the heat, since it has to go so high. Okay, it's not a pretty tape job, but it's taped so that this doesn't slide and it doesn't end up with any bubbles on the other side. So now we'll have a little area so we can put a little wording, or I could leave it the same. But of course, I think it's gonna look better with something there. Because of the possibility of bleeding, I always use a little bit of parchment paper underneath my Teflon. It helps save the issues of not having to figure out how to clean my Teflon or any mistakes I could make. So far, our dark transfer paper and our regular HTV has done really well at adhering to this jumbo postcard that we'll be using to mail off to a loved one. Now the back is showing the HTV, and one of the easiest ways to fix this is just cut out a large piece of HTV. You could do printable again if you wanted to and make it look really cute with a back postcard design, or you could just use construction paper and put that on the back and save your HTV. It's all up to you on how you want to design that. So now we're going to take our design and try to do a placement that we like on here, and I didn't do it too tall and I didn't do it too wide. I want to make sure that it stays. And here are a bunch of colors that you can pick from the adhesive vinyls from HTS. So I think I'm going to try it. Let's see what happens. Let's see how it turns out. Let's get the back of the postcard going. I decided to use a blue, and I think I'm going to use the softer blue to make this back. So I was looking at our previous cut for the canvas, and I remembered, I think I actually went with a 10.1 and an 8.1. That's why we had a little bit of trim on the area, but it actually worked because that helped to accommodate for some shrinkage when you're pressing. So I would add a little bit to it, but since we're not going to be pressing and we're going to be using adhesive, I'm just going to go with an 8 and 10, or a 10 by 8 in this case, since we're doing it based on width. And we're cutting a regular adhesive, so we don't have to actually mirror the design. It goes the right way up, so pretty side up, not pretty side down. So now we have our design cut out. It's not much of a huge design, just a simple rectangle. And that was super simple to weed. So I'm just gonna make sure I get the rest of the bubbles out of this. It's gone to the edges. We have a little bit on the edge here. If you can see, it wasn't evenly applied, but it's going to serve its purpose to make the back a little bit cleaner, a little bit smoother, so you can adhere your stamps and your to and your from, or excuse me, your from and your to the party that it's going to, so you can have it easily mailed out. And I decided to go ahead and add the to and from to this design, just so we can have it preset up for mailing. You can use these for actually any time. They're quick postcards, especially if you, like me, sometimes forget last minute and you need to make something. These work perfectly. So this quick little postcard, even though you couldn't tell from this video, didn't come out so bad. Easy, fun, and there's so many things you can do with the dark printable HTV, as well as the HTV matte from HTS.
For more tutorials like this, just subscribe to our YouTube channel and remember to hit the bell to be notified of all new tutorials. Thanks again, everyone.